Hey everyone, this is JT, and this is a tutorial slash mod introduction for making in-app purchases with Chrome SDK. Now, I started with going into a tutorial, and we'll talk a little bit about the store mod, but I also wanted to introduce the module that I'm about to set up in the GitHub, and we'll go ahead and we'll talk about how it can make it easier for you for building in-app purchasing models inside of your apps. Okay, and as you can see in the main file, there's not a lot. There's not a lot that we're doing right here. We're making a couple of calls, and we'll go through this in just a second. But I want to introduce you to the store mod and just talk about some of the things that are important in building something for in-app purchasing. Now, when you're first starting in terms of programming, you want to make sure that you have a transaction event and a product list event. And if you can see down here, we use them in set store-mod.transaction event and store-mod.start score. And the transaction event is essentially what happens when you make any type of purchase or any type of product modification in terms of the store mod. So as soon as we go to store-mod.init will start your store session, and the transaction event is a function that will be handling everything at that point. And you'll see everything from over here, the states, so states being purchased, restored, canceled, or failed, and you'll be able to do certain actions while at any point in time whenever you have these types of states. So that's one that you're going to be looking at. The product list is another one. So when we see here the store mod set product list, we're going to look up, and if you could see here, it's an array. Now it's going to be an array of the product identifier, and you'll be able to set that up in the iTunes store when you're setting up your in-app purchase item. And this is important so that you know which item that you're pulling in, and you're going to have this inside of your application. So you need to find it first in your app and set it locally inside of your application, then make a call to find it, and then when you're initiating the store products, they'll be able to do that for you. So inside of the application, you'll only have to touch two things. Now you'll have to obviously declare your products. Over here we have custom test products. These are just, again, placeholders. You have to set your transaction event, and if you do that, it'll go ahead and it'll make sure that you get the event status and the transaction whenever a transaction event occurs and when you're making some type of purchase. The next one is you have to make score-mod.startScore. And score-mod.startScore, what that does is that it will set the product list, and it would also take the product return function. So it will give you a list of two types of products, both valid and invalid, and you're going to have to do some logic to get it to work for you. So if you want to purchase anything for the store, you're going to have to use this. You're going to have to use a return function that takes both of these values in. All right, and there's also some other functions here. We have purchase item. Some of the purchase item does exactly what it says. It just takes all the other logic that you don't see. So it makes sure that if you can make purchases, it will go ahead and purchase. And if not, it'll tell you you're not available to do that. So let's go back into main and look at what we've done here. Now, up in the top, we've just set some interface requirements and things that you could see so that you can see this as a tutorial. And this down here are the two functions that you're going to need to call in order to run the store module correctly. And of course, you're going to have to require the module first, but you do store mod set transaction. Store mod set transaction again is going to set the purchasing event whenever you are trying to buy a product. And store mod.startStore will go ahead and take the product array that you made. There's a product array. There we go. We have the product array here, and these are some things from Ansco Mobile. This doesn't work. This doesn't work. You're gonna have to make your own products, and you're gonna have to put this on the device to work. So you won't be able to see this inside the simulator. We can show that you at least did a good job later on, and I'll show you that in just a bit. So it takes the product array, and now we have a function that we're inputting for the product return function, which has the valid products and invalid. And here you could see for every valid product, we're making a button that stores the individual product, and whenever it's pressed, it will go to store mod and use purchase item based on that product's product identifier. That's important. Not putting in the whole product object, but the identifier so that we can make that purchase. And of course, when we make that purchase, the transaction event that we set on top will take care of letting us know that it's been purchased or it's been canceled. Now, one thing to note inside of the store mod is that when you try to buy a transaction and you have finished activating your transaction event, it will automatically finish the transaction for you. Now, if you are downloading certain parts of your application, or your app requires that you have to download a certain part before finishing that transaction, I suggest you go in here and you change it. So let's say, for example, we want to change it. We're going to have to do a little bit of logic here. So right now we have store.finished transaction, store on transaction event. Now, if you want to change this, we're just going to set this to function. Store that finished transaction. So now we have that as a variable in the return function for a transaction event. So it's been purchased. We're going to do some work. So let's say timer dot perform on delay. And of course, we're going to need the function variable inside of here. And that should be it. So that should make it so that we can do any type of downloading requirement here. And I'm just double checking my work, and there we go. So that is what you'd have to do. Something like that, you'd probably have to make you'd probably have to take out the timer delay in terms for a network call, and on event response to go ahead and finish a transaction. But this is essentially how you would do it. All right, and let's go ahead and let's test this. The way we know that this works, like I said, you won't have this working correct. And we're going to do that right now. Now again, we're not going to be able to come up to the last part to make sure that we're purchasing this correctly. However, what we can do is to see that we are calling to the store correctly. So now it's done building. It's going to run in the simulator. I'm just going to close this here. And once it's running the simulator, you want to do test reset. And if we've done it correctly, it will ask us for Apple ID. Now, it's going to tell you that this is not valid, or it's telling you to go into a certain type of sandbox environment or whatnot, and that's fine. That just means that that this isn't a valid device, or it's not a valid product. And for that, you'd need to do all the steps I told you before. So you'll need to go ahead and do an in-app purchasing. Go ahead and do and complete an entire in-app purchasing item from the iTunes store, and then you put in the product identifier name for your products array when putting in for the store module. So that's my tutorial. And if you guys need more or have any other ideas for tutorials, please put that in the comments below. And have a good day.